Today's guest is an accomplished musician with a very impressive resume. By his late teens, he had already worked with big names such as Desmond Child, Michael Bolton, and Cher. In 1989, he released his first solo album, Never Look Back, and from that point went on to play with former Cream members Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker as the kid that replaced Eric Clapton. Later on, he joined the American band Poison for a tour and the recording of the great album Crack a Smile. He's released multiple records, both solo and with various band projects, but these days he's primarily making music for television and video games, and he's known as the go-to guy for many top producers and engineers in Los Angeles. With that being said, it's my pleasure to welcome the one and only Blues Saraceno. Blues Saraceno. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yep, you got it right.
All right,
Saraceno
awesome.
is, I believe, the pronunciation, which is funny because my dad's French, but his father was Italian, so we got the Italian last name. So, but I think technically we're more French than anything else.
Oui, oui.
Oh well.
Right.
So it could be Blues Saraceno.
Yeah, who knows?
The other stuff sounded better. So, yeah.
I gotta say, Italy has been so good to me. I've embraced them wholeheartedly, as has France. I kind of like everybody, to be honest. There's very few people I don't get along with. So I really, probably mostly the people in California where I live, probably the worst. but other than that, no, there's really nice people everywhere, I guess. And obviously some low hanging fruit too. But yeah. So no, California's. Like I said, I originally was born in Connecticut. And there just wasn't a lot of opportunity there, to be real honest with you. The best thing about Connecticut for me was the people. The people were very sincere, very solid. When they give you their word, it means something. And I really always appreciated that. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity there. And I just knew that if I had stayed there, I was going to end up doing, I was going to be a carpet layer or, I don't know, but there just wasn't a ton of opportunity. And the frustrating part was, I know I used to drive into New York City, and we'd save up all week and I'd buy a nice shirt and I'd come back to Connecticut and I didn't have anywhere to wear the shirt. And then I didn't have anyone that appreciated it was a nice shirt. So I just realized, maybe Connecticut's not for me for that. But my brother still lives there and I still have a couple. I never really was that tight with that many people, but the people that were there were always really, really nice. And like I said, I'm grateful that I had that time to grow up there because there was literally not much to do. It allowed me to stay focused on music, but I was definitely ready to get out. It was time for me. So then I came to California and it felt like a very, very, I've been out here 30 something years and it felt like a very, very different place. At the time it was fun and a lot of opportunity and just the women were pretty and the guys were cool and music was flourishing. And then it's become a shell of itself, unfortunately, but that's on them. They got to tighten up, and it's tough because you have all the resources here to be an untouchable scenario. But unfortunately, I think the way it's run is not good. And it's really bad, actually. I mean, they don't put water into fire hydrants. I mean, what's that tell you? So that part is very frustrating. But the talent is off the charts. But it's interesting. It feels like you're paying waterfront property, but you're living in the desert. So you're paying waterfront property prices. You're just not getting the return. And I think it's tough because you have a state that was, at least was highly considered to be one of the meccas of, movies and stuff like that. And they've driven all that business away. Now it's not. Now it's suffering, and I don't think it can come back. Places are closing left and right, and it's too bad because it's kind of like I remember New York had a certain vibe, and then and my phone's kicking in. Sorry about that. Sorry, it never ends here. And then it's almost like the people that made New York kind of got priced out. Now they're all in Brooklyn, so it's funny.
Yeah.
The true New Yorkers are over in Brooklyn now. And, but so it's a different pros and cons, but yeah, but like I said, that's why I stick to music. Cause that's the only thing I really know anything about.
Like
Yeah, but
compared
you
to when
talk
you
about
moved to
like
California, and now did the climate change a lot? Because I used to play with Sherry Curie, and she said like 10 years ago, even, or 15 years ago, it was wonderful. It was
Yeah.
blooming
Yeah.
environment,
It
and
is
now it's
horrible
almost
now.
like it's like third world almost. I remember Tracy Guns lived in Denmark for a few years. He has a son here, and he went
Yeah.
back to California after being here for a few years, and he was like shocked with like they had tents on
Yeah.
the
It's,
roads, and
oh, it's brutal. It's brutal. It's
uh,
very hard. I've got golden handcuffs here. I have, properties here, and I have family here, and
yeah,
my children are here, my wife's here. We're all here, and so, and I'm just happy to have everybody together under one roof. To be honest with you, as they get older, it's hard because everybody grows up and moves on. Then my parents are getting older, and I'm dealing with trying to help them, so
yeah,
there's a lot. These shoulders get tired after a while, but
yeah,
so I'm very grateful for all that as being able to have that. uh but to be totally honest, it's yeah, it's rough. I mean, it's not, California's in rough shape. I don't care what anyone tells you. It's just they got to turn it around. It's just the policies don't make any sense, and so it's very hard. It doesn't there's no incentive here, you know what I mean, to work harder or do more, because it just gets bled out. So
yeah. Okay.
they're not very welcoming for that, and nothing makes sense, and the legal system's bullshit, and it's like, you can steal up to $990. I mean, it's like, it's a fucking joke, to be honest with you. To be very honest, it's horrible, and I only say that because I care for the place so much. I could have chosen anywhere in the world to move, and I was touring the world, and I chose California. Met my wife here, and it has all the potential to be amazing, and it's run so fucking poorly that it's just brutal. And just on a side note, which is, it all the world's issues and politics have become everybody's religion now. So it's very hard to have any kind of nuanced conversation with anybody, so I just don't get into it. It's just no point. I like making music. Music makes me happy. I like making people happy. That's what I do. The rest of it, I'll assume that, you guys will make the choices that are right for you, and I will afford you that respect. The only thing I ask is that respect in return. Unfortunately, people here don't necessarily do that. They're like, well, they want the respect one way, but not back. But that's fine. I mean, that's on them. Like I said, it there's elements of this place that are untouchable. I mean, the creativity, the properties, um, the talent is brutal out here. It's really good, So, and like I said, here you go. This is my summer day, just sitting out, hanging out by
Yeah,
the
I mean,
pool, just
it's not
chilling.
that
You know what I mean?
bad.
This Well, it is. A burrito's $28, but you know what I mean. Gas is $6 a
Whoa.
gallon,
Okay.
but
Well,
other than that, it's, or whatever,
I'm trying to
$5. I
match
mean,
what
it's
you're
just, it
doing right
doesn't,
now.
it goes
Let's
back
do
and forth.
this.
but
Yeah, it's brutal.
Oh,
So
fuck!
it's
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 cold out
hard for
here.
that, but yeah, it's tough. But I've been lucky. I got in early, and I was always very work motivated, and I got in with, I invested in finding the right properties to live at and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference. It's very hard to make money as a musician, just in general. So, anybody that can even kind of survive is doing pretty good. It's very hard, especially now with the internet and that stuff. And it's funny, I have a lot of friends that are moving out of here, which sucks. I was hoping they'd stay, but they're kind of bailing. So, well, we'll just have to see how it goes. But I don't know. The weather is pretty nice. I will give you that. You know what I mean?
I remember I've been to LA a couple of times, and I think the first time was around 2003, and at that time I was super excited. It was my first trip to LA, and I was seeing like all these
Oh,
places that I recognized from movies, and
yeah.
we stayed at Hermosa Beach for a couple of days. It was super nice. But before I went there, people were telling me like, "Oh my God, you're going to the U.S. Everybody's got guns, and they're gonna shoot you." And
Ah.
and and when I got there, I was so surprised because I would take the bus everywhere, and what I noticed was whenever somebody entered a bus, everybody would sort of nod or just greet
Yeah.
like the new
No, you
person on
gotta.
the bus.
Yeah, your buddies are
here,
watching too much TV, man. I don't even get why would anyone even watch TV? It's like it's
Yeah.
never, it's like why would you bring your car to the same mechanic that keeps fucking it up? You know what I mean? It's like it's just no, I mean, listen, here's the bottom line, the US is in a truly, truly uncopyable place. It is an amazing place. Does it have its problems? Absolutely, as does anywhere. I just came back from the UK. We had the best week. It was so much fun. You can't walk around with a screwdriver, it's like,
No.
so every place has its thing, so I just think
Yeah.
there's, you have to, like anywhere, it's you got to grow up and know where you're, you got to be wise to where things are. You want to stay in the better neighborhoods than the not good neighborhoods. Yeah, there's a shit ton of guns here, but in general, maybe that's what keeps people kind of pretty even keel. It's never the gun.
Yeah.
It's always the people that's the issue. So,
Exactly.
listen, I was driving my bike in Studio City at 3:00 and somebody pulled a machete on me. That sucked. You know what I mean? Literally,
Yeah.
maybe I just have a stabbable face. You know what I mean? So it happens, but I don't know if, I don't know if I were in New York City, would it be any different if I were in, in Germany? I mean, I'm sure it's not the norm, and, so it's like anywhere else, man. I would not listen to anything TV says is my recommend. Here's what I think. I will say this. Most people here in the US I think if you took like a sampling, like let's say you took whatever, the first, for the 10th person that walks into a whatever, a Walmart anywhere in the US, everybody wants the same thing. We just want to be safe. We want to raise our family. We want some opportunity, and we just want to kind of be left alone. That's it. That's all there is. It's really not, that's most people. It's when you go on social media, that's when you start getting the noise. And so I don't even really, I only do Instagram, and I just keep it so that when people are nice enough to send me stuff, I can just post it, and I can I've been very fortunate that I have a very loyal, strong fan base, and they've been following me, since I was 16, and I've really, really appreciate it. And it's very hard because to try and connect with them is tough. The reality is I'm not really watering that tree so much, meaning I'm not doing guitar instrumental stuff. I never really wanted to do it in the first place. It was just an opportunity. And so when you're 16 years old and you're living in Connecticut in your parents' garage, and someone says, "You want to make a record?" I'm like,
Sure.
fuck yeah, dude. You know what I mean? Let's go,
Yeah.
And, and it kind of came from that. And so I did the records because I was really into it at the time. And then I just moved on, and people keep asking, do another record, do another record. I get it. The problem is I'm doing all TV and film now. So it's very hard to, I can't step over dollars to be counting pennies. It doesn't really work. I have too many responsibilities now. I got, kids and insurances and, all this other stuff. So, but
it's kind of funny because what you didn't initially want to do, like doing instrumental albums. When I was a teenager, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do my Passion in Warfare, and do that thing. That's all I wanted, to reach that point where somebody would tell me, you can now do an instrumental album. And I've done 30 plus albums now. None of them has been instrumental. And it's like, I don't really want to anymore.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, it was, it was a thing, but it was, yeah, I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you have to, you know what I mean? And it's crazy because I'm playing way more now meaning I'm doing more stuff now than I ever have. I mean, if you're watching anything on Netflix, chances are you're hearing something, you know what I mean? And because, I do all the stuff. I put it in a catalog. The catalog goes worldwide. It gets used internationally, and it just keeps going and going. And then you just have to, it's like this big, it's like a big steamship that you have to kind of keep shoveling stuff in the engine to keep it moving. And it's slow to move and slow to turn, but it's also slow to slow down. So it works. So I just keep, it's kind of like with anything else. Like I stay off social media. It's not my thing. I don't have anything to add to the conversation. So, and it just seems very divisive. So I just don't want to get into it. Like, I just want to, I just want cool people and have good conversations, and that's it. I realize the world's not perfect, and you have to work with it. But I got kids to raise. I ain't got time to sit there and pontificate over political stances or fucking religious issues. Like, you guys are much smarter than me. You figure that shit out. Call me. I like to rock. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I don't get into it with people, and I don't do the social media thing that much. Very little. Instagram, I'm pretty shitty at that, and my kids have to help me with it. I just focus on making music. That's where my strength is, and that's what I do. So that's it.
That's awesome. I was I was wondering, when you work on television stuff, do you let's say, does Netflix contact you and say, hey, we got this series that we're working on now, we need music for it, can you come up with something? Or is it sort of the other way around? You just make a bunch of music and then you send them what you think would be nice or would work with the concept?
It would be the second of the two primarily. You can do it either way. It's obviously, if you want it more custom, you do it the first way, meaning if somebody has a piece you're scoring to film, that's a different task. Don't do that I don't do that actually really that much at all if I can avoid it, because, and I'll tell you why. I work with a company called Extreme Music, and they're their own thing. I'm a separate entity, but I've been working with them for like 25 years now or something like that. And so they have a great team, and the main CEO is a guy named Russell Emanuel, and I've always gotten along exceptionally well with him. And so even back in the day, it's like he would come up with these projects. Hey, we have a certain genre that's doing really well. Why don't we do something in this genre? And then we just create pieces. They go in the catalog and then people just pull them. It's non-exclusive, meaning you can use it for your show. You can use it for your show. My wife can use it for her show. My kids can use it for their show. It doesn't matter. And that works better for me because the issue I have is that, listen, if you're scoring the Titanic, yeah, you're going to do well. I get it. The problem is you may also spend 6 months, 3 months, a year working on a piece and then it just flops, and so, a percentage of nothing is nothing. So for me, I just create these little pieces. I put them in, and it's also easier. What I like to avoid, if possible, is a lot of times with people, and I got this, I know when I started scoring TV shows, I was doing like, what do you call it? Little 30-minute comedies. And what would happen is, man, we would do the whole series, and then the day before they would change everything, and it was just back to the drawing board. It was like the decision by committee became very tiring. You know what I mean? It's like you start realizing in a lot of situations, the people that are calling the shots don't really know what they want or even what needs to be there. So it becomes decision by committee. Now you've got people chiming in, so after doing a bunch of those, I just realized I don't want to go backwards. So, the problem I also have with doing that stuff is you do stuff for people. They'll say, hey, we are, pick a company, whatever, an automobile company. We've got this ad. We got a new truck. We want a, royal blood type sounding thing. Cool. Yeah. And then you do it. You spend a couple days, you bang it out. You really crush it. You mix it. Everything's great. Actually, we thought about it. We want to kind of go more Americana. Can we mix it with, now you're doing a Leonard Skinner version. And then before you know it, you're fucking doing a Kanye version and then an Adele version. And it's like, Jesus, we need a Sabrina Carpenter version. And then it's like, 2 weeks later. And then at the end of the day, they just go back to using the first one, which is, it's like it never ends. So I like to avoid that. After I've done a couple of those, I'm like, I'm out.
You see so much of that with movie productions as well. Like you'll read about Star Wars or a new Avengers movie and how, midway of the production, somebody hands the director a note with all these changes he needs to do, and then the director quits because it's not his vision, and then he bring in another one, and it's just pure chaos. It seems like they don't have a clear vision of what they want, but it's sort of like, we'll see how it goes as it comes along, and if it feels right, we just stay on that path.
Yeah, and I get it. Listen, I'm not harsh on them. A lot of times they think they want one thing. Like I said, I've produced so many different bands and projects and albums and artists. I've worked with everybody from just the top of the top to not so much. The reality is, it's one thing to have a conversation, and then you have this like theory, a plan, and you try and apply it. And sometimes it delivers and sometimes it just doesn't. And then you, as the artist or the producer or whatever, you have to have enough tools in your skill set to say, okay, we need to pivot. This isn't, I know we wanted to do like a death metal jazz album, but this isn't working. It's like, now we need to switch, and now we're going to bring it, you have to be able to do that. So the problem is, when you're dealing with a lot of the television and film stuff, you're in a room, you're pitching an idea. It's got this concept, and you're trying to deal with people that are, you're trying to sell them a concept. And the reality is, I walked in rooms, I'd be like, listen, I'll get you there. It'll be amazing. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be yet. And the reason is because I don't know if what you want's going to work. And every time I tell that, they're like, yeah, you got it. Go with it. You know what I mean? And every time I walk in there, I go, no problem. I'll do exactly that. I do that. And then they end up realizing, oh, like I remember I was doing a show for Warner Brothers. I was doing 2 pilots one season, and it was a friend of mine. I got one, and then I picked up a second one. And it was interesting because the pilot itself was so kind of like neutral. Like they didn't want to like, it was kind of like in the middle of nowhere Americana, with like real simple comedy. So it appealed to everybody, but it didn't really take a thing. So the music was really, for me, my job was to come in. It's like everything was kind of a, let's call it, of a neutral palette. So then the music needed to be really much a thing to give it, a kind of an identity that worked with it.
Yeah.
And then for the second show, it was almost the opposing. So you have to be able to stick and move. And then, that's the joy of music and doing that. And so, it's interesting. And then a lot of times you'll do stuff, the music comes out great and they just don't use the show because they picked up one that was just like it, but it had a bigger star in it and it's an easier sell. So you become kind of, you have to kind of, it's not the result is not directly dependent on your skill set or efforts. It's really becomes kind of part of this communal thing. And, that's frustrating. So for me, I like just doing I get assigned a job, I go in there and I take it real serious, and it works well for me because I had done all the guitar stuff, then I did all the touring stuff, then I did the band stuff. Then I started doing all the session work. And the session work was great because it allowed me to work with all these different producers, all these different bands. And I got to see, it's like, I got to fly on the wall in their world. And then I also started meeting all the engineers and I started realizing, ooh, parallel compression. Use an SSL on that. Really? Okay, interesting. And after a while, you start seeing, a lot of, kind of consistencies, and then it's a good, when you start seeing a lot of consistencies, that's a good place to at least start in investigating and be like, okay, why is everybody doing it this way? Oh, I get it, it gives you that sound. And then once you kind of understand how that's done, then you can veer from it and do your own thing. But in the beginning, a lot of people just don't know how to do anything, and it was very frustrating because as an artist I've always had a vision, I know where I wanted it to go, but necessarily trying to get it there is it's like if someone gives you it's like if I walk to you and go, guys, you've been so nice to me, I'm going to give you both get your very own helicopter. You're like, I wouldn't even know how to start that fucking thing. You know what I mean? So, so it becomes, it's a trade-off. You have to kind of know. And then as you get more experience and you realize how important engineering is, how important mixing is, how important the presentation is, it's kind of like, I mean, that's our whole society. Why do you think everybody's sitting there using filters and, no one posts them fixing their toilet on Instagram? Look at, this is me with my buddy's new, rented car, you know what I mean? Or whatever, you know what I mean? And they don't show you at the ER holding your fucking finger that you put a nail through when you were putting a shingle on your roof. They don't show that stuff, So, and so my point is being able to control the narrative as much as possible. It gives you a lot of freedoms as an artist, and it helped me move forward. So
you just said something that completely fucking stuck with me for the last 4 minutes or 5 minutes. I don't know if what you want is gonna work. That was the perfect thing to tell a room full of executives, because you're telling them, I'm gonna do what you asked me, but I'm also smarter than you, so just go along with that. Like, it was fucking amazing. I don't know if what you want is going to work. I'll be quoting you on that.
No, that's fine. Yeah. And it's not even that I'm smarter. I'm not smarter than anybody else. I've just done it enough times to know that even if you get what you want, it's like, I'll give you an example. Everybody chases the Eddie Van Halen sound. I did too. Everybody did. That was as a guitarist, that was like the thing. A friend of mine, Mike Tempesta, who I've been friends with for I don't know, we've been friends so long I can't even keep track at this point. We're always getting into some kind of like trouble together. But he has got great ears and he's always got the best gear. And so I remember at one point, years ago, he had a 100-watt plexi, and it was like, and it was pretty damn close. I remember we went to his place where he went to his office. We had a 412 cab near the room. We let that fucking thing rip, man. We were shaking the walls, and it was pretty close. Like, I mean, it was fucking pretty spot on. And the funny part was that when I did all the Van Halen riffs, they was amazing. I mean, it was like, oh shit. And then the second you veer from that and do any other different type of style, wasn't so amazing. You were like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, wait a second, this works really well for this, but it doesn't work for that. And so part of that is just when you get that experience, you start realizing like, okay, I know, I believe the end game I believe the end game you want, but how to get there is really the mystery. It's just like everybody copies like a Jimi Hendrix because he was just, he made such a huge impact on everybody, and they try and copy his sound down to the coily chord and everything, but you got to look at it differently. It's not, he wasn't chasing. He just took what he had and he worked with it. Just like if you go on the farm and you drive the big farm truck and you want to take a left, man, you got to turn that wheel like 18 fucking times just to get it to go to the left. Yet you get on the racetrack and you just get in the sports car, you just breathe on it and you're in the bleachers, So the point is, he did what he did because that was what was available to him. And I think people don't, everybody's so busy trying to be Led Zeppelin. They weren't looking at it from like, well, this is what was available and this was they were trying to get across and they did this and that was the end result. Try playing Superstition on anything other than a clavinet. It's a little weird, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So,
but talking about like guys like Jimi Hendrix, did you have that moment where you heard some music or you saw an artist and you just knew like, hey, I want to learn how to play the guitar. This is what I want to do. Did somebody inspire you to start?
Yeah, well, my dad played guitar, so that was I just grew up around it. It was always there, and my family was really we were a feral family, but it was cool in its own weird way. It was like, yeah, it was wild childhood, but they were always. My dad was very much. Both my parents were into music, so my dad would get up in the morning and he like he was like a kind of like a hi-fi stereo guy. He liked all that shit too. So we didn't have any money, but we did the best we could with what was there. And so every morning I would get up and there'd be like music playing. So like before he'd go to work, he'd be listening to like one morning was fucking Iron Maiden, next morning was Joan Baez, next morning was Minnie Riperton. Then we're listening to fucking Carol Kay, and then we're listening or Carol King, and then we're listening to fucking the Allman Brothers, and then we're listening to fucking Black Sabbath. I mean, and it just kind of so. And because he played and you're a kid, you hang out, you always want to be like your parents because they're older and they have their friends and his friends play guitar. So it was basically my dad played guitar and I just wanted to do that. And as far as the landmark one, of course, because of our age, yes, you get the Hendrixes and the Beatles. That's always a standard one. I was less a Led Zeppelin guy. I was really a Van Halen guy. That was kind of the deal. When I remember when I had a Sony Walkman, I would go to school and I had to walk to the bus and it was a long walk. Fucking, it was like, through the woods and shit, taking shortcuts because we lived in the middle of nowhere. And, I just remember I'd put on, I think it was Van Halen 2. I don't remember even which album it was, but I remember listening to Van Halen 2 going, what the fuck is this thing, man? This is nuts. Like it was the guitar sound. It wasn't even the playing. It was just the sound. It sounded like it was on fire, like it was going to explode. I just never heard anything like that at that point. Always been a rock guy. Like I'm a rocker, just can't shed it. Always been like Johnny Winter, Richie Blackmore, Pat Travers, all this stuff. I always liked the bands like Cactus and James Gang and shit like that. I liked the rockers, man. That was like, Grand Funk Railroad. I was like, yeah, that shit's cool. You know what I mean? Like the 80s was a rough patch musically when they're sitting there with their fucking synths and ties. Like I get it now. I much more appreciate it, but I just couldn't embrace it at the time because there was nothing to grasp onto, doing the guitar part to fucking Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer just wasn't working for me. You know what I mean? I get it now. Great song, great artist, great song. Don't get me wrong. Wish I wrote it. You know what I mean? But, I kind of felt that way about U2 at the time. I was like, I can't get it. Now I hear it. I'm like, oh, the textures are phenomenal in the songs. Like it took me a minute to catch on to that.
I went backwards.
But at the end of the day,
I
always, I always go back to the rock, man. I'll be like, man, you know what? I remember my friend, I had one of my best friends from Connecticut, Derek Dudek, and we grew up around the same time. And when he was 16, he got his license. I got my license. And so I remember he had like this kind of, I think it was a Toyota truck, like whatever the fucking Taliban drive, like some, kind of crazy ass car. And then I literally remember sitting there and, we were listening and I got this album called Cowboys from Hell, and we would fucking rock that album so hard. We would listen to it so loud that we couldn't even talk. We'd have to wait in between songs. It'd be like, that's fucking amazing. It would go right back. We loved that. We were like, was big on that shit. Iron Maiden. I loved all that stuff. That's just kind of what I'm into. I like that high energy shit. AC/DC, all that stuff. And then, you kind of, as you kind of explore more musical things, then I started really appreciating more stuff. But I ultimately at my core, that's it, dude. I like to rock.
When you just mentioned Cowboys from Hell, and that brings me to when I was a teenager, I got this. It was like
Yep.
Exactly, and it had a little CD, and learn how to play like Dime. Now there's an interview with Dime in it. And he talks about his inspirations and one of them is you. And he
Oh
goes,
shit.
man, I could listen to that cat all day long. His Played and Never Look Back albums rule. He's killer, man. Blues never overplays, and his feel is so honest. His tone is killer too, and you can always tell it's him. That dude is everything that guitar stands for. I even got a little green plate tattoo on my leg 'cause of blues. That's how much I think of him. Oh, that's
Yeah,
pretty badass.
that's crazy. No, he's
Yeah.
it was a crazy story. So I was secretly like a fan of his because, like I said, Derek and I would listen to that shit. We wore the fucking because and I'm just telling you, like, I don't like, there's so many stories out and all the stories about the fun and what a good guy he was that they don't really do him justice. Let me sum it up for you like this. He was just the sweetest dude at his heart. He just had like such a good heart. He's like, you meet people and you just can't really not like them. You're just like, this guy's pretty fucking cool. He kind of had that energy going on, and when he picked up the guitar, the best way I could explain it to you is he just had it. Like, I don't know what more to tell you than it didn't matter. The second he touched the thing, it was on. Like, I remember I played his rig at sound check and it was like, I was like, what the, it didn't, he could pick up, he just had it. And that was kind of, he just had it. Both the brothers, they just have it. Whatever that thing is, whatever that spark is, whatever that thing that moves the needle, they had it in spades. They were dripping with it. It was crazy. And, whenever we'd hang out, it didn't matter what guitar, none of that shit. It could be anything. He just had that feel. They had that weird, I don't know if it was like they had like a Texas swing about
It's
it.
like
It
the
was
Van
trip.
Halen
So,
brothers.
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. It was just like, it's almost like what do they call them? Like almost like with singers, they call them blood harmonies. Like, I have two daughters. And so when they sing, I'm like, oh, it's just something you can't, I don't know what it is. I don't, it's I can't figure it out. And they just had it. And so you're basically taking a guy that was just a sweet guy that was very charismatic and he just had the gift. And so you want to be around him because he was just such a kind person. He just had that thing. You're like, oh my God, like, it's like a buddy that walks in the room. And then you want to be around him because he has the gift too. So it was like, I understood why people were always, wanted their dime time as we ended up dubbing it. Very sweet. Both brothers, very, very sweet guys. And, so it was interesting. I met him at a Texas guitar show. And the weird part was when I met him, I was like, hey man, I don't know if you know me, but I've got your record. And then he didn't say anything. He just walked away. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then I walked and I was like, oh shit, and then I ran to him another time. He goes, yeah, he goes, I just couldn't think of anything to say. So I just walked away. I was like, that's the best story ever. We got along very, very well from there. And like, we weren't like, there were people out there that were really, really close with him. I was like, we'd talk on the phone and like have conversations. We were like, in each other's orbit, but I wasn't like part of the inner circle with those guys. Like, I'd hang out at the shows and it was fun, but there were people out there, like friends of mine that were really, really in the inner circle. And they have just the craziest, best stories to explain. And it's kind of like, so that was, but at the end of the day, the legacy is that they just had that fucking talent. It was amazing. I mean, he just, everything he touched, you can't teach it. You can't explain it. It just is what it is. It didn't matter. It's just one of those things. It's very rare. I come across that so rarely. It's like hearing a great song. I hear a good song every 5 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 6 years. I mean,
I think it's rare. It's actually about presence. There's a presence to the way he plays and like the interaction between Dimebag and his brother whenever they played. There's no limits in between them or walls of any kind. They're just like fucking telepathy,
Yeah.
But also the presence of the playing.
I can only.
Dimebag's very animated in his playing style, and actually, when I was a teenager and I listened to everything from all the Shrapnel guys, because me and Thomas both did, we grew up on that shit, and then an album called Hairpick dropped into my mailbox, and all of a sudden there was this different presence to it. Maybe it was because it wasn't as sped up as Michelangelo, but you could actually.
I just couldn't. I couldn't do what those guys do. You got a guy that's holding on, trying not to drown. That's all that is.
Yeah, but that's what it sounds like now. I mean, I didn't care when I was 12 if I was awesome, but there's a presence to it, and you can actually you can appreciate every note that's being played, and that's the same with Dimebag. And you also have that. Joe Satriani, The Extremist album. I never cared about Joe Satriani until I heard that album because it had a presence to it. It was very in your face.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
reminded me tone wise more of Gary Moore than Steve Vai, but it had that presence. And I think you
mm.
got that too. And I think that's what Dimebag appreciated about you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll take all the kind words, that's for sure. I'm not turning them down. I think, it's so funny because you're looking at it from, one side of the fence. I had to make that record. It was tough, it was hard. So it's just a different experience for me. And, at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, it's so fun. I remember I had a man, I had the manager was like, man, just keep pumping these things out. We can make a whole career out of this. I didn't feel like that was my road. I remember, like, I'll tell you this. I remember having dinner in Paris we were doing like one of these like shows. It was like a convention and I was playing with TM Stevens and it was one of those big things where, like, everybody comes on stage and I got a chance to sit down at dinner with all those people, so many talented people. And I remember Vi was there and I sat next to Steve and his wife, I believe, I want to say it was Pia. She was
Yeah.
very, very nice
Pia.
lady, very nice. And she grew up one town over from where I grew up. So we were like, oh man, there too. Very, very nice lady. Steve was very nice. They were both very, very nice. But my point was, in talking to that dinner, I was just listening to him talk, and he was talking to people. Like, he lives and breathes the guitar. It's his thing. Like, I just remember looking at him going, that's that guy. He is that guy. I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm more of like a brawler. I just want to get in there and fucking punch it up, have some fun. You know what I mean? And the guitar to me is like a weapon I use just to start the thing off. And then there's so much more that I'm kind of really more into, and it's hard because guitar is easier to quantify. It's like a race. If you have two people and they're both racing, one person crosses the finish line first. You can say at that moment in time, one person was faster than the other. So, but with me, it was more like the guitar was just a tool to get to the next step. So you got a kid that's 15. I'm sitting in my parents' garage. I didn't want to finish school. I was terrible at school. I got a chance to either work with Michael Bolton or make a record. I chose to work with Michael Bolton. That fell apart because my car blew up. And then I decided to make a record. And then from
Whoa.
there, I just was like, this is my ticket out. You know what I mean? And so I just kept pushing it. And then I did it. And then after 3 records, I was like, I don't have anything to say at that point in time. And then when I walked away from it, at one point I just got rid of all my guitars. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I remember when I just left the band Poison, and I bought a house and I took all my guitars. I think they all went to the Hard Rock Cafe. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was just
You're just
over it. I'd
fed up
already
with it.
seen.
Yeah.
I wasn't fed up as much as I was just kind of like complacent with it. Meaning, like, if you sit down at the movie and you already know the ending, it's like, I don't want to sit there for 2 hours. I know how this ends. I wasn't excited about it. So therefore I didn't feel that I could bring anything that was worth being excited about. And it didn't feel honest. Like, like it felt like, and it like, that's why, like, whenever I see people and they are familiar with my earlier work, I always try and take the time to stop, talk to them. I will give them whatever I feel. If they're giving me, their most valuable asset, which is their time and their support, the least I can do is stop and acknowledge it. I don't think that's too much to ask. So I try, when it's applicable, I do that. And it just felt like, yeah, I was over. I got rid of all my guitars. I kept one, and my friend Dweezil lived down the street from me, and he was always very generous. Like, he'd let me borrow stuff. So I remember, like, I'd get calls to do sessions. I needed to make a living. So I was like, hey, I got to go do a session tomorrow. Can I borrow a Strat? He's like, yeah, just grab one out of the corner. And I'm like,
That's
well, I just
Hendrix,
want
by
a
the
good
way.
fresh. He goes, just, and that was literally the Hendrix guitar. So I'm
Yeah,
like
yeah,
walking out
I
there,
know.
we're holding the Hendrix guitar, without even a case. I'm like, hey, and I turn around, I'm like, should I get a case? He's like, if you want, you know what I mean? Just grab the case, like, that's just how it was. It was just a guitar. And so I did that for a couple years. I just was he just let me borrow stuff. And,
Sorry if I
whenever I
just
would do
assumed
sessions,
it
and I
was the
just got,
same Dweezil we were talking about. I just assumed it was the
yeah, I'm
same
pretty sure
Dweezil.
there's only,
It wasn't
yeah,
Dweezil Hansen
I
from
don't think there's,
Wisconsin.
no, it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't Dweezil Smith. That's for sure. But, yeah, so he was always really nice about that. And then I just got embarrassed after just kind of always borrowing stuff, because then I started working more. I needed to work, so I was like working, and then I just had to then I slowly started getting back into it. But and then the TV and film thing kind of became more the exciting thing. I mean, I don't know where the end game is with the guitar thing. It's like, you do it, you play, it's a bunch of dudes, they show up, they're into it, you kind of hit a glass ceiling, and then it's a living. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather do that than dig ditches. But you get older, and then what happens is that the girlfriend becomes a wife, and then you have a kid, and then all of a sudden now you need a house, and now the house is not big enough because now you have two kids, and the kids need cars, and then they want to go to college. So it's just it just keeps going. So you have to kind of stick and move and do that. And I've been really, really, really very fortunate to be able to still make a living on the level that I have been able to doing music. It's been fucking dream come true, to be honest with you. But it is a grind, and you definitely have to earn it. I put in the time for sure.
Okay, so
are you still touring?
But do you ever, when you're all by yourself, the kids are out, the wife is out, do you ever have that moment where you dust off your old Yamaha signature played guitar, plug it in, and just let it rip, like teenage shred style?
Nope.
Just
No, if I
just
have
say
a moment,
yes.
I'm taking.
We're having illusions with
Can't
all
do
here.
it. If I no, your viewers are dropping off like flies, and I'll take a nap if I get a free chance. That's the best shit to do. No, but I mean, I get to do it. No, the challenge. Here's where the challenge is. The challenge is when you're cutting tracks for The Simpsons, and you're like, "Oh shit, let me sneak this in there," and they let you do it. That's pretty funny. You know what I mean?
You did something for SpongeBob, right?
I didn't do it directly. If I did, they may have used stuff. I mean, you never know, because basically you take it, you put it in this catalog, and then it just gets used worldwide. So I have no idea. You don't even really control it. It gets owned by, so the reality is, like, let's say a company wants to use it and you don't like the company. Well, you're out of luck. It is what it is. I mean, it just, anybody can do it. And the game is, each track is kind of like how when you throw a football, there's like an arc to it. It goes up, does its thing, comes down. Well, the theory is, if you throw, enough tracks up, they kind of become a common ground, and that becomes kind of like your watermark. And so I've just been really lucky. If you do really good work, then hopefully your tracks get used for a long time. If you do stuff that is, kind of hits the mark, it's very much kind of fairly merit-based, so I get to crush it on guitar, and I do it, but I only do it for commerce now. It's weird. Like I had a friend of mine that was doing a track for Disneyland and, like, Disney World or something like that in, like, Japan. He's like, go to town. I'm like, you sure? He's like, go for it. So now when you go on the Centipede ride or whatever it is, you'll hear me just, throwing the bricks down, like, so it gets, it's brutal. I mean, so I actually do it more than people realize. It's just not packaged as a guitar album. I try and put as much shit as I can on the Instagram feed, because that way you can just, like, and it's always short, 30, 40 seconds, whatever. But that's, I mean, how long do you want to hear somebody play anyways, And
I saw you posted you from Nam, where you were, like, shredding a bit.
I was just, Nam's always a met. You just walk in to me. Nam is basically this: hi, nice to meet you. There's a guitar. You don't get to warm up. Hope the sound's good. Ta-ta. You know what I mean? And that's it. And so you just walk out, and everybody's sitting there with their phones 3 inches from your face, and you're like, fuck, all right, So you just, I did this one. I played with Paul Gilbert. He was incredibly professional. Man, let me tell you, that guy, I understand why he's, I understand why he's a legend. That dude, he's very, he knew what songs to do. He had it all worked out. Very, just pleasure to work with, so we kind of had something semi like, hey, we'll at least do these songs. And then I walked over to do one with Dweezil, and I was like, what fucking key are we? And he's like, A. I'm like, okay, let's go. And that was it. And then we just start swinging. I mean, it's it. You just fucking riff for 10 minutes and have fun. It's actually more fun doing that, because then it's not, you're not, there's no goalposts. You can just go wild, and then I go to another booth, and they're like, there's no one. You just, it's fine. I mean, listen, I have seen some of the best players on the planet. I mean, I've literally sat maybe 2 from me, watch them just sit there and kind of suck. You're like, oh man, like, and then you see them the next day, and they're like fucking walking on air. It's music. It's, it's sometimes it's amazing. That's, to me, my favorite players are the ones that take the chances and really go for it. That's how you get the great shit, I think. You have to be willing to just completely fall on your face, but that's how you get the good stuff. I find the more controlled players are definitely way more consistent, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't excite me. It doesn't, it's like, listen, there's a million people on Instagram, literally a million, and they're all fucking phenomenal. And I just don't give a shit. It's crazy. Like, I just don't even care. I don't even, They get
I
it.
think what everybody
Congratulations, you
really,
executed it.
yeah, but what everybody really wants is to hear somebody almost fall off the cliff, but then somehow survive anyway, instead of seeing somebody drive perfectly aligned with the cliff, but never being in any danger. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just not exciting that
Yeah.
way. Speaking of NAMM, by the way,
I mean,
did you go there to promote guitar pedals? Because I read online that you have a guitar pedal company, and I want to hear something about that.
I'm working on one with J Rocket Audio right now. That's the one
All
I'm
right.
working on. I don't. So my dad, it gets confusing because my dad had he did his pedal things, and I would always represent him, but I was never involved in him. Like he makes these. He's
Okay.
the mad scientist behind that. I don't know if that pedal broke. I'd be like, I'm fucked. So, and then he just got older, and he wanted to kind of get out. He just wants to retire. I think he just, he's just in a different phase. As parents, anybody that has aging parents knows what that's about. So
Yeah.
we're kind of, I'm part of the sandwich generation. I got the kids on one side and the parents on the other. And, I got to make sure the light bulbs are changed and the cars are working, and then I got to make sure the tracks get handed in and they have to be hot fire, so it's tough. Yeah. So I'm working on one right now with J Rocket, which is it's going to be very cool, very utilitarian. And just I've just kind of used their pedals for a long time now. And I like things that work. I
Yeah. Cool.
I like everything. It's very hard. You have to be able, in order to kind of survive in a current landscape, you have to be digital, you have to be analog, you have to be everything. Like you can't, the days of, unless you're Jack White and you just hit at the right time and had that skill set, which is I don't know anybody else has got that skill set, you know what I mean, other than him, he can he can do it any way he wants. And but for the rest of us that have to survive, I have to work everything. So I use digital, I use analog. I think I like them all. I mean, I think they both have their strengths and their weaknesses, and I just try and use what they're great for. So for me, I'm just looking at things as very utilitarian. That's a fork, that's a knife, that's a spoon. Let's go. At the end of the day, I don't get too hung up on it. And but what I do like is, and it's just the way people's mind work. I have friends that are very detail oriented and they like to scroll and sub menu and tweak and all this shit. Fuck that. I don't have any time for that shit. I like stuff that just does what it does. That's it. It's like, just give me the fork. I don't care. I don't need 8. Just give me a fork and let's just get the job done. So for me, I would rather have 6 tools that do 6 different things rather than one tool that does 6 things. And it's a little harder to work. Like, for example, I still use my old Mini Moog. I've got a plugin. Plugin sounds great. And I'm sure when it's all put together at certain times and certain circumstances, either one, you can't tell, or maybe the plugin will work better. The problem is I don't get the tactile experience of tweaking the knobs. Like I wouldn't have gotten to my destination had I not kind of experimented and kind of each thing becomes a degree in a different direction. So I started with this idea. Like I said earlier, everybody thought it was going to work. Didn't work, had to pivot. Now we're in a different direction. Now I'm trying different instrumentations. That should have worked, didn't work. But as an artist, the key is just to get things to be great. And think of it like this. Here, I'll give you this analogy. It's kind of like, it's like this with guitars. It's like this with people. It's like this with everything. It's like you go to the pound, you want a German Shepherd. Like, I got to get a big, badass German Shepherd. I want to walk down the street with a cool fucking German Shepherd. That's going to be awesome. But then you go to the pound and you just run into this cool little fucking Chihuahua. It's the dopest Chihuahua on the planet. Now you're a guy walking around with a Chihuahua. You wanted a German Shepherd, but the German Shepherd wasn't happening. It was the Chihuahua. And so now I'm kind of more, as I get older, I'm like, I just want a cool dog. I don't care. Maybe it's going to be a dog with an afro. I don't know, And so I just stopped. Same thing with guitars. Every time I tried to find, I have to have a 63 Strat Olympic white. It's like every time I find one, they sounded like fucking cardboard, yet I find some heavy piece of shit that weighed, fucking, it was, somebody had painted it with fucking, Scotch tape or whatever. Piece of shit sounds amazing, So, and I've made mistakes in the past where it was like I've let guitars go, or I've, because they just didn't fit my mold. And now I'm completely trying to change that. Now it's more like, what does this do? Is this amazing? Let's rock. So I like things simple. I like pedals that are just do what they do, very simple, because the part no one really takes into factor. Like, perfect example, NAMM show. All right, I just sat in traffic for 2 hours. Then I had to park the car. Forgot to eat. Damn. Okay, now I got to go figure out the part. Oh, didn't have a badge. Okay, now I got a badge. Got to be on stage in 3 minutes. I'm 7 minutes away. I roll up, now I'm 4 minutes late. I grab a guitar. What amp do we have? Does the amp work? Nope. All right, plug me into the other amp. Oh, shit, no gain. Great.
It's a Line 6
speakers.
Spider.
That one's blown. Fuck. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Here you go. Here's a Line 6 Spider and a fucking Boss heavy metal pedal. Get to work. People now have been waiting. Right. They've been waiting for 5 minutes, so they're pissed, and now they're sitting there with their camera in your face. You look over at the person that's next to you and they're looking at you like, what are we even doing? You're like, I don't know, go. So now I'm sorry, I can't sit there and scroll through my fucking menu to find the parameter for the fucking MIDI notes. Fuck that, but I do understand they have a place. If I were doing a choreographed show, or if I were touring in a band, digital all day long, baby. If I was a touring musician, you out of your fucking mind. I wouldn't be carrying those cabinets. I'd be grabbing whatever's digital, run it through some power amps. Let's go. So everything has its time and place. And to be honest with you, when I do television and film, the bulk of my money is made digitally, just so you know. So I have a wall. I mean, I've got Plexis, fucking Fox AC30s, JMIs. I got all that shit. I use it, very selectively, because a lot of times what'll happen is they want recalls, and I'll get a call from people like, hey, that thing we did a year ago, that's awesome. What if we change the ending and we can use it for a fucking Game of Thrones spinoff? I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go, or whatever they're using it for. So a lot of times you leave shit digitally, and digital's great. You just have to know how to work it. The key with digital for me, for the way I play, because I'm a very particular type of player, and I don't tend to really lean into the gain as much as other people, that for me, digitally works great if you just take a picture. Like digital, think of it like digital it's kind of like IKEA. When you see an IKEA couch, you're like, this thing's amazing. It looks great. It's $200. As long as you don't sit on it 3 times, you're fine. As long as you don't spill water on it and then it puffs up. But the impression of it is really good. When you see it, you're like, God, that's a good looking, or whatever. So with digital, you can do things that are amazing with it. Where it tends to start falling apart is when you really start wrenching on it. You can push it 10% to the left, 10% to the right. But if you really start carving on it, then what happens is you like, typically digital, especially with guitars, have this big, huge sound. And then you start realizing, ooh, that's kind of that murky low end. I can't really use all that shit. You know what I mean? So then you clean it away, and then you realize, ooh, that was kind of masking the fact. It's kind of harsh sounding. And then you try and clean away the harshness. And then you realize now it's kind of spiky up top. So before you know it, you got all these EQs going.
You have nothing left.
and it's just, you're just kind of like, you're deflating it, but if you just take it and breathe on it and use that and then build around it, it's amazing, So I'm an equal proponent for either. I mean, I use the neural stuff. I love the neural stuff. I use IK multimedia. Love it. I use Waves. I use UA audio. I use Pro Tools. I use all that shit. I also got Neves and Telefunkens and fucking old Marshalls. I mean, it all serves a purpose.
If I've joined some friends or whatever in the studio, and they're working with, let's say, Pro Tools.
Yeah.
I'll sit there with my guitar and I'll jam and do whatever, and they're working, on the screen, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it, and as they're working with it, I feel like it all makes sense. I'm like, okay, I get this. Okay, yeah, that makes sense too. He's like, turning this thing and whatever. So I come home and I download this shit, pay a fortune for it on my own computer, and then I'm just sitting there staring at the screen, and I have no fucking clue what to do. It's like my brain just, it's like, I go like, but 3 hours ago I was looking at this guy doing it, and it all made sense. Why can't I? It's terrible. I'm not really good with it.
I'm the same way. It's weird. Like, so I'm good. I can operate Pro Tools, meaning getting it to do what I want to do, but yet I'm so uncomputer savvy. Like, if the computer goes down and there's a kernel error, I'll just chuck it in the pool. I wouldn't even know what to do with it. Literally, I'm useless. I mean, it's almost like I'm a child when it comes to that stuff. Like,
I used to have this.
It's like anything else.
I used to have the same problem, but I found a solution. Check this out. Because I just completely and utterly fucking dismissed anything that has to do with computers. So I do use modelers for recording, but then I use this as my interface. And this pedal right here record, stop record. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm using
yeah, yeah.
models, and then I put
Like I
everything
said,
into the computer. It's just
yeah, I mean,
I love
it's all, like I said,
no screen in front of
it's
me,
however you
just
want to
like
get it done. There's no rules.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
So that was my solution: get rid of screens
Yeah,
and only have
there's no
like a foot
rules. That's
controller.
yeah. No, there's no rules. It's like I said, it's just achieving the result. And I'm glad there's no rules, because that's what keeps music youthful and creative and fresh and exciting. And it's because there are no rules. You know, the way kids work now is way different. I work with new artists where they'll send me, dry tracks. I'm like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, and I
Yeah,
actually, but rather it's kind of like AI. It's like you're either defensive or offensive. And I like to be
yeah,
offensive with things. I think that's the smarter move. It's kind of like everything moves.
absolutely.
You
Sports
can't
get
stop
better. Fucking
progress.
yeah, exactly. Listen, I would like an iPhone 2, said no one ever. You know what I mean? Because things just keep moving. You know what I mean? And they're always
Yeah,
going to move forward. And I think as an artist, you just have to find a way of finding out with whatever tools you're given. Creativity is creativity. I mean, you're not gonna, I was listening to I was listening to Ray the other day, the way she sang. Man, she sang the wheels off that song. Yeah, AI is not doing that, man. Like, it's not gonna happen. I'm not saying AI isn't gonna sponge mop up a huge amount of stuff, and it will. But I'm just going to use it as a tool, just like, when things went analog versus digital. Like, so think about this, like, the world changed when things went digital, because now what I used to have to book Sony Studios and spend $2,500 a day and then get an engineer, and then to track overdub vocals, you're only using one channel of that 78 channel Neve board. Now it's
yeah,
like you just record them at home. So everything changes. So now what's happening is, okay, music is now free. As far as the product is not where you make the money. Now you make the money on the merchandising and the social media and all that stuff. So it's just, the game just evolves, and you just have to kind of try and stay ahead of it. I'm in one of the last fields of music where the music is actually the product. Think about that. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So now, because
But how does it work? So if I make, let's say, an Instagram reel, nowadays you can go in and you can add music to it on Instagram, and it opens up and you search the artist. So let's say I search you and I use one of your songs on my reel through Instagram. Does that give you any money in the end?
not really.
Theoretically,
No, but
yes, but
in
no.
theory, does it give you like half a
Yeah.
cent or something?
Real answer, no, I ain't making shit.
No,
Like, for example,
no,
Spotify, you don't make any money on Spotify. It's
no.
you just
No.
it's no. The way the money's made is that I take stuff, I put it in the catalog. Let's say you would go to that place and say, "Hey, we have a need for this music, whether it be television, film, podcasting, whatever. We want to license the track." They come to an arrangement for whatever the money is. You get a sync fee, and then you get royalties based off it. So my world consists of sync fees and royalties. The other stuff is so pennies on the dollar. It doesn't cover. I mean, dude, my car insurance, I pay $1,500 a month for car insurance right now. That's what
Holy
I pay.
shit.
I've got two young drivers. I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, yeah,
So
makes sense.
trust me, the point, 0.0008% of a penny made from Spotify isn't, I'll take it. Don't get me wrong, but that's not the show. You know what I mean? And so for me, I have to stay kind of more exclusive and more high end, because the television and film can be a pennies game too. You don't, you want to stay away from any of the like real quickie, like rip off sounding stuff no one wants the Macarena now. So what do you do with that track? It's dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You may have gotten a 3-month push with it. So, you kind of, once again, you have to kind of, the
Harsh but
challenge for
fair.
me is to kind of come up with, yeah, well, the
No
challenge is
one
to
wants
come
the
up with
Macarena
something
now.
like you have to hear. Man, no one wants that shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Sorry.
it's like you have to come up with the track that is like, that you wish the artist made. Like, okay, pick an artist, whatever genre. Let's say it's a Kanye track or whatever. You have to, embrace what that artist is and be like, okay, this is really what sets this artist apart. And you want to create something that you kind of wish they created. You have to not just copy what they're doing. That's cheap. That's very, very short-sighted. I don't know how well you would do with that. I think the key is you have to kind of just say, hey, like we pick a genre. We do, like, dark country's done very well. So once again, you have to work within the goalposts. You have to come up with stuff that is marketable. I can't, if I write a song called, every Wednesday is a sad day. You're like, well, that's a little tough to, it's a little tough to merchandise that one. You know what I mean? It's like, so unless you have a show and it's Wednesday and they're not having a great time, it's, where do you place it? You know what I mean? So you have to come up, but if you come up with a title, like, for example, I have a song called Evil Ways. Now that,
Yeah.
it's kind of dark, it's kind of brooding, but it's not so dark that you can't use it. It's kind of tough, but not really tough. It's like politely mean, if that makes sense. Like that is, evil ways. Yeah, my truck, evil ways. I got a cat, evil ways. You know what I mean? I got an ex-wife, evil ways. Whatever your thing is, I don't know. You know what I mean? So, it's safe, but yet cool. But that's hard to come up with. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of create in the vein of what can be used, but yet not make it. Really, you don't want to do it just for commerce. You want to do it for art too. So it's a hard needle to thread, to be quite honest. And that's
it's sort of like a hashtag.
Kind of, yeah.
I think it's it's admirable, and I think it's super cool how you've gone from being like in Poison and having that kind of career, and then moving on to this, which is such a man, my brain just stopped there because I'm thinking in Danish. Do you know what I mean,
I'll
Dennis?
check in.
You know where I'm going with
I know
this.
what you
I get
mean.
what you're saying. Yeah. I mean,
it's sort of funny because
not,
me and Thomas we were talking the other day. What we saw, both of us, were we had these old albums like the Hair Pig, and we had the Poison album, and I was like, so what else has he been up to? And we went online, and I was like, I came back like white in my face, saying, have you checked Spotify lately? No, he's got stuff there. Yeah. Remember when I told you about that time I was personally hired to write a song for Biker Club, and I didn't really know how to go about it. I just I got paid to do it. So I said, okay, I'm going to write some biker country rock music. And I just searched online outlaw country or something like that. And you actually popped up.
Yeah.
And I was like, Blues Saraceno, but that's the guitar guy from when I was a teen. And that's how I got to listen to your your dark country stuff. And then I went to look on Spotify, and like the first song has like 35 million hits or something like that. I was like, Thomas, have you seen this? Because,
yeah, no, there's
yeah, that's a massive following, and that's why early on I asked, are you still touring? Is this something you tour with? Are you just doing these productions? And
nah,
it's not a live band or anything.
I'm done touring. No, they don't even, that's the crazy part is it's just kind of, the fan base just kind of supports it on their own, I think is the thing. Like, for example, I've got one song, I think it's called Dogs of War. It's got like 36 million views on YouTube. It's not even on my channel. I wish it's on somebody. It's somebody just put it up. And they just people just kind of find it. They probably see it in a show or in a video game somewhere, and then they just kind of follow it. I don't have time to do it. I have no interest in touring. My interest now is raising my family, making money to support that. I got kids now, we just, that's kind of where my attentions are. I love the music. I'm so committed to it, and I'm really put a lot of time into it, but that's that whole separate thing. So it's just, that's just people that just kind of push it. Like I don't even have a YouTube channel because, but there's probably, one's got 36 million, one's got 20 million, one's got 50. If I add them all up, there's probably over 100 million views. But it's just independent people that put them up, and
yeah,
it's crazy.
Back in the 90s, I knew a couple of metal guitarists, and to make a little bit of side money because, well, it wasn't that big of a income, they would make music for porn movies. and
hell yeah.
And that was I'm not naming any names.
neither am I.
But it was just no, but it was just funny, right? Because because you can say that was sort of an early that was sort of an early version, sort of like the more the watered out version of what you're doing. I mean, you're not making porn music, but it's just
that
you just turned it into
Yeah, yeah, that I'm aware of. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah, but
exactly. It's just
you took it to this level, right? You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
working for
Well,
you, and I think it's badass.
yeah, well, it's hard. You have to. I mean, you have to survive. You have to keep moving. I mean, I think it's that, and like I said, listen, if you get bored, just go to Extreme Music, go on the website, just just put under composer my name. Just got to be like 400, 300 tracks, something like that. You'll
Yeah,
hear
okay.
so much
Wow.
stuff there. There's tons of stuff. There's lots of guitar stuff on there. So, that's just what I've been doing, and I'm grateful to do it. And like I said, that's how I can kind of stay on the cutting edge of stuff. Otherwise, I still feel like it's more of a leading position than a following position, which is good, And I like the challenge. To be honest with you, I like doing the television stuff. It's pretty fun, and I like getting to put tracks. I really got I got lucky and I got in with the right company, and they're really good people to work with. So it's been fun. But yeah, it's hard to get into, and it's a grind. You'll definitely put in hours. It's not you never get to coast because you have to always be delivering. You cannot never deliver. That doesn't work out.
But you're
Have you
also
considered
your
using
daughter
AI?
is working like she's
Right.
Yeah, just ignore
Yeah,
me.
my
your
daughter doesn't
I'm
have
at
that
that
daughter
point now.
what pilot Paisley Rose.
Yep.
There was this song running back to you, which I thought was really cool. I played it for my daughter, and she was really into it. So are you helping her writing the music or
No,
producing
she
it
writes it.
or
She writes. I don't. I basically was like, hey, you should get into doing this. It's hard. She wants to. She's really wants.
got
She's
a
doing the
great
acting thing, and
voice?
she's yeah, great voice. Yeah, both my kids.
Yeah.
My younger daughter Bluebell is actually the voice when you hear the river, which is like that's one I think my top selling track of all time. And she's the girls choir. We just kept doubling her and doubling her and doubling her. They
Oh.
both really. I mean, they just their talent is there. So what happened was with Pilot, she knows that's an avenue for her. She really wants to focus on the acting, and she just graduated from college and all the stuff. So we are full steam ahead. She's kind of running parallel with the music stuff, but she writes all that stuff herself. I don't do any of the writing. If anything, she'll bring me an idea and I'll be like, of the two, I like A versus B, and then she'll take it and run with it. But no, that's all her. And then what I do is I try and put her with a good producer because she needs to be with a current, like somebody that's current, so that we found like a good team, and she'll team up with a producer and they'll kind of put that stuff out there. And she's got more content coming out. She's working on it, but she's also, she just filmed a TV series and stuff. She's got a bunch of stuff happening on the acting thing as well too. So we're just kind of like trying to find the pocket. As being a parent, it's trying to get your kids on a path that they're passionate about, but also is going to be a good lifelong career. It's a challenge, especially now. It's between the technology, the cultural shift, all the stuff that's going on. There's just a lot of potholes to try and avoid when running the gauntlet,
Man,
And
I gotta say, I almost envy that whole thing, having such a, like musical parents and growing up in that environment. I mean, listen, when I grew up, my mom, she listened to two songs or two artists. One was Julio Iglesias,
hell yeah.
and
I can
and
be
the other
your hero,
was
baby. Oh, that's the other one. That's the
no, that was
younger
Enrique.
That's Enrique. Yeah.
I suck.
And the
Carry on.
other was she would listen to Gypsy Kings Bamboleo on repeat.
Oh,
Dude,
okay. Well, it's
I'm
catchy.
telling you,
Yeah.
we're talking about 20-hour car trips from Denmark to Hungary with Bamboleo on fucking repeat, right? It was terrible.
Hell yeah.
My dad literally does not like music. He was the kind of dad, like if we put on a cassette and we listen to like two songs, he would come out, like just open it, rip out the tape and be like, that's it. The only time my dad, this was the weirdest thing. One time I came home from school and I'm going like, music is playing. What's up? What is this, Slayer? So I go upstairs to my dad's room and he's listening to Slayer's Rain and Blood. No, Season in the Abyss. And I go, and I'm like, what what's going on? Oh, no, he went into my room and it was lying there and he thought, well, this looks interesting. So he put it on and he goes, yeah, I think they got a great sense of rhythm.
So your
That
dad
was
was
what
They kind of do.
he's a closet metalhead, man. Closet metalhead.
But that's it. Whatever else I would listen to, if I was listening to Yngwie or Extreme or Pantera or whatever, he'd be like, "Oh, turn that goddamn crap off." He was like, "Have you ever seen Freddy Got Fingered
No.
with Tom Green?" No.
No,
Okay. My dad was like Freddy's dad. He was like, "You either eat that goddamn roast beef sandwich or you go to bed."
You should have played him some Pantera, man. He probably would have loved that shit. You know what I mean?
I did. He didn't like it. It was terrible. The only musical person in my life was actually my grandma. She was she used to sing opera, and she was a ballet dancer at the Royal Theatre in Denmark. So she introduced me. Like the first music I actually was introduced to was a shitload of classical music, like Mendelssohn and Vivaldi and Bach and all this stuff. She would play it constantly. So that was my first introduction to music. But then at some point, my brother came home with AC/DC's Razor's Edge and he put it on. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And for me, it was like, I could not imagine anything harder. Like, badass, it was like brutal in my ears. It was crazy. Yeah. Yeah, and
that's straight. That's straight fucking crack cocaine for the soul. That shit right there.
Yeah,
I love it, man. You had me at AC/DC. Those boys, they had a formula, But like I said,
where it started for me.
Yeah, listen, that's probably why we're all getting along. Music, I'm going to leave it on this. I just think music's a great thing. And I think it's nice because it allows people to kind of have a shared common interest. And, we can all put our differences aside for a hot minute. We can enjoy how fucking good AC/DC and Pantera is, and it works out. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's most people.
And that's what I tell my kids too when we talk about music. My son recently got a bit more interested in hard rock. We actually went to see Toto, and we went to see Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, and he was like mind blown. But we talk a lot about music, and I tell him like, don't limit yourself. It's like a buffet. You taste everything. Every single thing got something special to offer, whether it's funk or soul or even, if it's techno or rap or metal or whatever, everything's got something unique. And you should let yourself get inspired from all those things. Don't limit yourself.
That's fine. I mean, like I said, music is communal, which is nice, but it's also very personal, which is nice too. So, and I think that the thing that I have always enjoyed, I'm glad I've had it in my life because it, at least for me when I was young, it gave me focus. So hopefully for your son, that's good. I mean, I think especially for kids, being able to focus on something, especially something positive, is a good thing. I think, regardless of what that is. You know what I mean? Whether it's sports, whether it's academics, whether it's music. For me, it was arts and academics. That's what I liked. And, it's good because it allows you to be communal, meaning like, hey, you like music, I like music, we can agree on that. And then it can also be personal, like, hey, this is my shit, this is what I like and this is what I'm into. So I don't really see a downside. And what I also liked about it is, and maybe your son or your daughter will appreciate this. Like with me, it was like, it didn't matter how old you were, how young you were, or whether you were male, female, or what your gender, your affiliate, none of it mattered. It was just merit based. So it was like, if you were good, you wanted to be like, oh shit, I want you in the band. Like, let's do this. And so I remember when I toured with Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker, I was 16 and they were 49 and 51. And then we had the Parliament Funkadelic. We had Gary Cooper, and then we had Bernie Worrell, and no one cared. We got along fucking great. It was awesome because we were just happy to be around people that could add to the equation. It was great. And I think that's the great thing about music. And like I said, I can't spend my time trying to fix, pure metal, any metals. I like all music, some I like better than others. I'm not saying, but it's all good stuff. So I think that's a good thing to leave on, gentlemen. I think we're good there.
Exactly.
And I appreciate your time very much. And hopefully
thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much for doing this.
No problem.
Because
you guys have kept me entertained, to say the least.
As I said, this is, this is not a big podcast. It's not Joe Rogan in any way.
I did it,
I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Really,
that's
thank
honestly
you.
for me. That's the challenge for me. I'm always the person that it's like, well, let's see what's over there. Sometimes you make the best things. I don't necessarily, I don't know if going on a bigger one is what I want to do. I just kind of hand pick them. It's good. So I really
Thank you
appreciate the
so
time
much.
and give me
Thanks so
appreciate your
much.
Thank you.
platform, and hopefully this will do well and it'll warm up where you guys are soon. Hopefully.